The laughter behind his back, the first time Daniel Lim stepped into Hillridge Academy, all eyes turned toward him. His legs, braced in metallic supports, clinked faintly as he walked. Every step took effort. Every movement invited stares. And though his mother squeezed his hand tightly before letting go, Daniel knew, he was on his own now. Hillridge wasn't just any school. It was prestigious, posh, and brutal. A place where children wore designer shoes and carried phones more expensive than most cars. Daniel, a scholarship student, came from a quiet, working-class neighborhood, and worse in their eyes, he walked differently. By lunch, the jokes had started. "Hey Robo-Legs," a boy called from the corner table. "You beep when you back up?" Laughter erupted. Daniel kept his head down, carrying his tray with shaking hands. The metal brace around his left leg creaked. He found an empty corner and sat alone, his face burning. He'd grown used to the stares over the years. Born with muscular dystrophy, Daniel had endured therapy, surgeries, and endless hospital visits. But nothing prepared him for the cruelty of teenagers with too much time and too little empathy. In his first week, he earned cruel nicknames. Tin Man, Cripple King, Legs. Teachers saw, but rarely intervened. Hillridge's unwritten rule: the rich protected their own, but Daniel had something they didn't see, an unshakable fire inside him. Flashbacks of steel. Daniel's mind often drifted to his father. A welder, strong and proud, who taught him that strength wasn't in muscle but in resilience. "When they laugh," his father once said, rubbing grease off his hands, "don't fight back with fists. Fight back with your future. Make your name so big, they'll have to choke on it." His father died of a stroke when Daniel was 10. That pain never left. His mother picked up double shifts at the nursing home to keep the lights on. Daniel studied by candlelight when bills went unpaid. He taught himself programming from free online courses, dreaming of the day he wouldn't need to beg for acceptance. He'd earn it. The betrayal. In 9th grade, Daniel met Liam, the first student who treated him like a human. Liam was charming, smart, and came from money. They bonded over video games and tech, spending hours after school coding mini-games. Together, they started building an app to connect freelance tutors with students. Smart pair. It began as a school project, but Daniel poured his soul into the back-end development. Liam handled design and networking. One day, in their final year, Daniel walked into class to see posters everywhere. "Smart Pair," by Liam Carter. Launching soon. His name? Nowhere. When he confronted Liam, the betrayal cut deep. "You think anyone would invest in you?" Liam had said, sneering. "You can barely walk. I did you a favor, keeping your freak name off it." Daniel didn't fight. He simply turned around and left. He cried that night. Cried so hard he could barely breathe. But the next morning, something inside him hardened. He stopped looking for acceptance. He started planning something greater. The turning point. Daniel began freelancing under a pseudonym online. He built apps, automated systems, and solved coding problems for startups. His reputation grew in underground tech forums. By 18, he was making more in a month than most of Hillridge's parents did in a year. He declined college offers. Instead, he built his own software company, IronSpark Systems. A nod to the steel in his legs, and the fire in his heart. For 4 years, he worked in silence, until the call came. Hillridge Academy was nearing bankruptcy. Their main donor had withdrawn. Staff were quitting. The board sought buyers quietly. Daniel didn't hesitate. Within a week, the paperwork was complete. Daniel Lim, once Cripple King, was now the sole owner of Hillridge Academy. Great. Here is, rain tapped lightly against the windows of the Hillridge Academy auditorium. Students gathered for the mandatory assembly, no one knew why. Rumors buzzed. Some said the school had been bought by a foreign investor. Others whispered about staff being fired. But no one knew for sure, until the stage lights came on. A tall man in a tailored black suit walked slowly onto the stage. The sound of his steps, clink, 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 sent a chill down the spine of anyone who remembered, and many remembered. Daniel Lim had returned, but this time, he wasn't limping through hallways avoiding bullies. He wasn't clutching a tray at the edge of the lunchroom. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was standing tall, proud, unshaken, and he owned everything around them. The announcement, "I know many of you," Daniel began, his voice calm but sharp. "And many of you know me." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Teachers shifted uncomfortably. Students glanced at one another, confused. "My name is Daniel Lim. Years ago, I walked these halls as a student. Some of you laughed at me. Some ignored me. Some of you still whisper about me." The projector behind him lit up with a logo, Hillridge Academy, powered by Spark Systems. There was a pause. "I am now the sole owner of Hillridge Academy." Silence, dead silence, then, gasps, eyes widened. Jaws dropped. The crippled boy now owned the very building they stood in. A new kind of power. Liam Carter, now a teaching assistant and intern tech advisor at the school, stood frozen in the back. His hands trembled. Daniel spotted him. "Some people stole ideas. Some laughed behind my back. Some thought a limp made me weak." He stepped forward, but I turned that pain into fuel. "And now, I'm here not for revenge, but for change." Applause erupted, not all at once, but growing, clapping from the scholarship students, then hesitant staff. Eventually, the auditorium echoed with it. Liam couldn't move. He felt the weight of humiliation pressing down. Daniel didn't even look at him again. The rebuild. Daniel's changes came fast. He restructured the school's funding system. Scholarships doubled. Students from underprivileged backgrounds now received full support. He replaced outdated tech with state-of-the-art labs. He invited coders, engineers, authors, and creators to mentor students. Hillridge stopped being a shrine for the elite, and became a launchpad for potential. The rich parents grumbled. Some withdrew their children. Daniel didn't flinch. He wasn't running a daycare for entitlement. He was building a future. The confrontation. One evening, Liam approached Daniel's office. Daniel looked up from his desk. "Ah. Liam." Liam hesitated. "Daniel, I didn't know you'd come this far." "You didn't think I'd walk again either," Daniel replied, without smiling. Liam shifted uncomfortably. "I was young. Stupid. I didn't mean to." "You meant everything you said," Daniel interrupted. "And now, you're here for what? A job? A share of the empire?" Liam's face turned pale. "I just wanted to apologize." Daniel studied him for a long moment. "Apology accepted," he said at last. "But you're no longer welcome here." Liam's mouth dropped. "You can't do that." "I can," Daniel said, standing. "I own this place." Security escorted Liam out. He didn't resist. He just looked back one last time, at the crippled boy who now stood taller than them all. A quiet victory. Daniel sat alone that night in his office, lights dimmed. He looked at the photo on his desk, his father in welding gear, smiling. He whispered, "I did it, Dad." He didn't need revenge. He didn't need applause, just the satisfaction of rising when no one believed he could. The legacy of iron. The sun set slowly behind Hillridge Academy's towering buildings, casting long shadows across the school's campus. The once privileged grounds, lined with gold-trimmed gates and fountains, were now a symbol of change. The students, once content in their golden cages, had become the harbingers of a new era, a more equal, more innovative era. Daniel sat in his office, the windows wide open, letting in the cool evening breeze. He could hear the distant hum of the school, the footsteps of students milling about. It was strange, he thought. Just a few years ago, he would have been on the fringes of it all, wishing for a space where he could just be seen, acknowledged, not ridiculed. Now, Hillridge was his. And everything he had built, every line of code, every difficult decision, every sleepless night, had led him here. The press conference. A week later, Daniel stood at the podium of a press conference held at Hillridge Academy. The journalists were gathered, cameras flashing, all eager to know the story behind the boy who had turned a bankrupt school into a thriving hub of talent. "We're here to hear about how you managed to turn around Hillridge Academy," a reporter asked. "What made you believe you could succeed where so many others failed?" Daniel smiled slightly, his face calm. "I didn't believe I could succeed. I believed I had to succeed." He paused, looking out at the sea of reporters. "You see, failure isn't an option when you've been told your entire life that you don't belong. I wasn't born with privilege, nor did I ever expect it. But I believed in one thing, myself. And that was enough." There were murmurs in the room. Some skeptics, some admiring. But they all listened intently. He continued, "My father, a welder, taught me that strength comes from how much pressure you can handle before you break. And it's in the pressure that you find your true power." Hillridge wasn't about saving a failing school, it was about creating a place where anyone, no matter their background, could rise to their full potential. He let his words settle. He was done talking about the past. It was time for the future. "I'm proud to announce a new scholarship fund," Daniel added. "It will be available to every student, with a special focus on those from underserved communities. We'll be opening satellite campuses in major cities to provide access to education for those who don't have it." The room erupted in applause. But Daniel wasn't there for the applause. It was a necessary step, a stepping stone to something far greater. Liam's return. Months passed, and Hillridge Academy flourished. Students from every corner of the world came to study, some for the tech programs, others for art, writing, and entrepreneurship. Hillridge had become a melting pot of ideas, innovation, and determination, but as success rose, so did the ghosts of the past. One chilly autumn day, as Daniel walked through the hallways, Liam Carter returned, this time, not as a student or intern, but as an outsider, an unknown man in a cheap suit. He approached Daniel, who was sitting in a courtyard, reading over some plans for the next academic year. "Daniel," Liam began, his voice tentative, "can we talk?" Daniel put down his papers slowly, his expression neutral. He recognized Liam immediately, the same arrogant, entitled look, but now hollow, drained. "What is it, Liam?" Daniel asked, his tone uninviting but polite. I want to apologize," Liam said, shifting uncomfortably. "I was wrong. You were right. I thought you'd fail, that you'd be nothing more than a shadow. But you've built something real. Something bigger than me. I was an idiot." Daniel looked at him for a long moment, his gaze steady. "You weren't just an idiot, Liam. You were a coward. And a thief." Liam flinched, but Daniel's voice softened. I've learned something that you never will. I never needed you. I never needed anyone. I had to believe in myself. And that's the difference between us." Liam's eyes flickered with shame. "I understand now. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness." "You don't," Daniel replied. "But it doesn't matter anymore. I've moved on." There was a long silence between them. Finally, Liam nodded and turned to leave. But before he did, Daniel spoke again. "Don't let this be a lesson in regret. Let it be a lesson in what happens when you underestimate someone. The next time you see someone you think is weak, remember me." Liam paused at the door, looking back at Daniel for the last time. There were no more words between them. A legacy unbroken years later, Hillridge Academy stood as a testament to Daniel's vision and determination. It had become one of the top educational institutions in the world, a place where the brightest minds from every background were given a chance to shine. Daniel Lim had become a name known in every tech company, in every boardroom. His journey from the crippled boy to the owner of an empire was a story told and retold, a symbol of resilience, of strength, and of the undeniable power of believing in oneself. But perhaps the most significant part of his legacy was not his wealth or fame. It was the school he had rebuilt. He had turned a place of mockery into a haven for those who had been dismissed by society. He had created a world where no one was judged for how they walked, how they looked, or where they came from. The laughter that once echoed through the halls of Hillridge was long gone. Now, the only sound was that of students building their futures, students who, like Daniel, believed that their potential was limitless, and for Daniel Lim, that was all that mattered.